Well, hello and welcome to that favorite part of the day. I'm sure by now you are sitting back, relaxing, and waiting for the topic and the discussions that would follow suit. And we have a very interesting one today. Indeed, it's one of those topics where we should have literally, probably open up the phone lines or announce some numbers so you join in, because I don't think one person has got the number. We're looking at social media and the new politician. Social media and the new politician. Now, once upon a time, if I was a politician and I was heading to Odumasa to open a tap, I will get one or two media men to follow me. We go there, whether the tap is there or not, whether it flows or not, I would chip them, tell them, listen, when you go, this is the story we need to break. And more often than not, they will come and tell the story as, this politician seems fit. But now, by the time you get there, everybody in this village, half of them are also media men, all with their WhatsApp, Facebook Live, all recording exactly what's going to happen. By the time the media man drives from Odumasa to Accra, the news is all over and everywhere, unedited as it is. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The times have changed, the principles are the same. Principle is that we have to spread the news, but the times is that it is coming way too fast. Should the politician be cautious about this? Once upon a time, before you heard the news, it was like probably a week, 3-4 days old. It may have happened a long time ago. And then it becomes very difficult to start it all over again because it's dead and gone. But now it's live. What should the new politician do? And indeed, with us, how responsible should we be? Because sometimes I tell you, more than half of the things you would read on the social media are not factual. Even though they make to seem as though it's coming from an original source, it's not. That's the fine line where we're going to have a discussion today. And when I come back, I'll introduce my guest. My name is Anan Sakwa, the fourth chief of the famous Little Republic of Akomo Odumasa. When I come back, I have two fine gentlemen, one in studio, one yet to come, to talk about social media and the new politician. Don't move. Well, with me in studio is good brother and friend Suleiman Ibrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Who best to talk about such an issue on that? And then later, joining us on the show will be Dr. Echi Sikanku, who's a communications expert. He'll join us here. My brother, good. Hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nana. Great to be here.
Good. So the lead times have really changed in terms of the speed and the rate with which information or news spreads now. It's phenomenal. In Ghana, I think the mobile phone penetration, it's, we are world ranking. I mean, we're up there with the big boys in terms of mobile phone ranking. I mean, there are people who can barely read ABCD, but they are on WhatsApp. So with the video of something happening, they can easily also read it, download, listen to the video, and then see what happened. There's a time when, people say, oh, the media was manipulated and the news is skewed and everything. What's going to happen? In relation to the new politician, how should they guard themselves now?
Well, I think we are in a very interesting times. Some will find it quite challenging. Some will find it quite exciting. And we are at a time when individuals that are called journalists no longer have that monopoly over control of information. They no longer serve as the ones through whom the citizenry get their access to information. We no longer have editors being the sole gatekeepers or having that gatekeeping role and controlling what can come out on the screens, on the pages, and on air. Now, through the power of technology, individuals, what is even amazing is the fact that people, who cannot read and write have suddenly become creators of content and distributors of content. Now, I think the most exciting part is that it has become an enabling technology that gives voices to those who used to be voiceless, persons that would have been marginalized, persons who needed their story to be told but may not have what it takes to get their stories to be told. And so today, whether it is through Facebook, through WhatsApp, through Twitter, and all the other things that you can talk about, individuals in their villages, and of course, not to remind people about the devastating thing that happened to one of our great citizens, the Major, who passed on. Mm-hmm. And before you realize, this is a tiny village, you know, relatively, and yet we had people who were able to, you know, take pictures, you know, film whatever was happening. And before, you know, the mainstream media could publish what had happened, videos had gone viral, and so on and so forth.
It made a difference in the impact?
Well, it did, because as some have said, it served as evidence gathering platform. It helped those who were investigating the incident to be able to get, you know, pieces of information, putting them together to contradict perhaps what ordinarily would have been just a hearsay. We heard that this happened, we heard that that happened. In the last 1 week or so, I think we are all witnessing something that is so phenomenal relating to what the Honorable Adjo Asafo had said in her constituency as regards what her contributions may have been in a development project cited within her constituency. And the fact that, but for, you know, the video that had gone viral, we would have had an instance where the politician may say, oh, they reported me out of context. That is not exactly what I said. And then it becomes, oh, do you have the tape played? Do you have this? Do you have that? But now it's instant. You know, the video is there. It's viral. Everybody can see what is said. Everybody can hear what is said. And so we are in a very, very interesting times. And those of us in public light, politicians and so on and so forth, we need to recognize that social media has become a very, very powerful tool that can make and unmake us. And therefore, we need to constantly learn in what ways can we take advantage of this powerful,
you know, people were saying that
tool.
Social media hasn't got that credibility and that you have to come to mainstream to get the credibility. But is it still enough to make or break people?
You see, in a media literate environment, I think that may be an issue. But given the context in Africa, where it is just about information sharing, and that is why people sit on radio and even in news bulletin, what you hear, you wonder whether this is news or this is entertainment or this is just some storytelling that is happening. And yet, this will be major news, you know, major news bulletins that are being aired. It is all because our people predominantly, even those of us who are literate, majority of us are not media literate, to be able to say, no, this is not what we should expect to hear from mainstream media. So under that circumstance, it's all about any information goes. And it is for you and I to say, no, don't believe that. What you saw on social media, don't believe it. So it also presents a challenge for us to be able to see how we can increasingly educate our citizens about media literacy, for them to be able to know what is real, what is not real, what is fact, what is not fact. But indeed, it is not also everything that is on social media that is not true. You know, it is just perhaps sometimes how it is packaged. But eventually, a lot of big media organizations now have desks that are just picking information from social media, trying to see what is true, what is not true, and then using it as a major source of news. You know, in many of the global media outlets, you know, social media has become a big platform for news gathering. Just that you have to know what is true, what is not true. How can I verify this photo? How can I verify that video? And of course, if you watch some of these international channels, they would say, well, an amateur video, a video that is not verified, and so on and so forth. But that should tell us that there is some level of reliance on social media as a source of information gathering, even by international media networks and therefore mainstream media organizations for that matter.
I remember a time when, you know, you could be sacked for being on social media, probably during work hours, you know. And now, even though maybe you may not be sacked, but I mean, you'll be looked down upon if you have no social media to sort of, you know, tell your your clients or that, there's this offer in the workplace, or I mean, like with us, they're constantly, put this on your social media, put this on. But I remember the time where they would say, no, this guy's been on Facebook during work hours, and therefore, there was a query. The pendulum has really swung. Where now you're actually encouraged to have it so you could reach more people. But are the positives bigger than the negatives, or the negatives bigger than the positives?
No, I think the positives are, far outweigh what the negatives are. Of course, people will talk about cybersecurity issues, how people are using social media to commit all manner of crimes, to send messages that are false, that sometimes lead people to committing certain acts because of how they've been driven by social media content and so on and so forth. But if you look at how people are using social media to market goods and services, to market themselves, to share information, indeed the US president, I think his main source of information sharing has been his Twitter, his Twitter accounts. And throughout the campaign up until becoming president until now, almost every important information that is being shared is through the social media site Twitter. So I think that the positives far outweigh the negatives.
That's been a big conflict in America now, with people now getting used to the traditional form of dissipating news, i.e. get a press man to come and stand there. He said, look, I can reach 100 million people instantly.
Yes.
So within 140 characters, the news is out. Is that the new, is this going to be a new way of, is it going to be an acceptable way of, news sharing?
No, it's definitely going to be, and perhaps it is already. As I said, I believe if you take multimedia, all your channels, you have your social media accounts. And there are people who may not have the time to go and read those 3-page, 4-page, stuff on My Joy Online and so on and so forth. All they want is those 140-character, summaries of the stories, and there they go. I believe that if you were to do any survey here in Ghana about where people get their news from, I believe a lot of people, if not the majority of them, are going to say, well, I get my news by visiting Facebook or going on Twitter or, going on this particular social media site, because I just look at how people have summarized their story and I get it. Just like we were taught in journalism school, the lead, make sure that the most relevant things are all packed there, where, when, who, how, and so on and so forth. And so I think that increasingly news consumption patterns are changing. People don't have the time. People are multitasking. So what they want is just tell me the story within some 10 words, 20 words, and then I get it. When I have the time, I would sit down, relax, and want to now read. So I think we need to be abreast of the issues, that the fact that news consumption is changing. People have different mechanisms now of accessing news, and therefore those of us who are in the business of news creation and news dissemination, we need to also adapt to the new trends, to see how we can stay with our clients, stay with our readers, stay with our audience, and so on and so forth, rather than continuing to play the game as if we are in the old school, bombarding people with text, bombarding people with long format articles, and so on and so forth. So definitely social media is changing the trends, and I believe that there will be new things coming. Day in, day out. Facebook has been here with us for quite some time. Nobody thought about WhatsApp. It came and it was like, the first time I got used to WhatsApp, somebody asked me, are you not on WhatsApp? I said, what is that? But that one is, a messaging app that is cheaper than your normal text message, that is faster than your normal text message, and that is more secure than your normal text message. And all of a sudden, WhatsApp is everywhere. People are sharing videos, audios, pictures, and so on, platforms, and all of that. And I believe people are still thinking, in what ways can we improve on what we already have? In what ways can we fit into the ways people want their information delivered? Would it be just audio messages? So you press and you hear what your friend is telling you, and you record and you send back. People are inventing and thinking through ways of communicating day in, day out. And I believe that we will continue to witness a lot of these technological evolutions.
I'm going to take a break, but when I come back, I just want to find out, is information not moving too fast? Because information is so critical, and maybe you need to filter it at some point. But at this rate, I mean, before the filter is even triggered, the information is gone. And then there's so much, is spent in coming back to sort of repair the damage that's already been done. And one issue is when a politician was, said, oh, this politician is in bed with a Chinese woman. By the time he comes back to say, look, it's not me, it's gone. We're coming back to find out how we deal with that thing. Well, thank you very much for staying. We're looking at social media and the new politician. Once upon a time, the people in power could control the amount of information. I mean, even if you wanted to rule the country, all you had to do was just hijack GBC and that's it. You're ruling the country. Maybe that's it. That was the main source of information. You block it, and then that's it. You own the country. Today, you'd have to block WhatsApp, block text messages, block God knows how many things you will have to be blocking to be able to rule the country. But I was talking about speed and the need of filter. I mean, sometimes by the time we hear that, look, this is wrong, the news is already out there and there's a lot of damage control to come and repair it. Sometimes you see factual, they look very factual letters, or somebody says they've resigned, or somebody says they've been sacked, or an apology letter, on an official letterhead blasted. And sometimes even on media platforms, somebody will come and put it there and you check, look, have you checked? Have you called? Bam, it's there. I'm on a social media platform. Media person puts a girl there and says, this girl has HIV and is going to spread it. And so everybody comes and says, look, have you even verified? Have you seen the health record? And this is a media person, not the average Joe. So, I mean, what are we going to do with this speed and this filter?
Well, Nana, you see, if you think of it quite critically, you ask yourself, you see, the social media platforms don't activate themselves. By themselves, they don't create content. It is we, the individuals, who do it. So if you ask yourself, is it because we didn't have these platforms, that is why people were not doing what they are doing now? In other words, if we had the opportunity to interact amongst ourselves and we were connected through a certain mechanism, wouldn't we behave in the same way? Perhaps it's just an actualization of who we are. We've always yearned for opportunities to talk to each other, to network with each other, to share information with each other. And all we have now is our platforms that are allowing us to actualize what is within us, what we would have done if these things were there. But because they were not there, so I have to either travel by car to come and meet you, or through a funeral or a gathering, social events, then we talk among ourselves, we gossip and so on and so forth. So all these things that we see online, whether on Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, I think that it is just an actualization of who we are and what we would always want to do. People would want to lie, amongst ourselves. In communities, people gossip. In communities, people lie to each other. So it's just a reflection of what truly who we are. That is what we are seeing on social media. But again, your point about the information overload. Well, we are citizens. Now, I have a Facebook account. I'm on WhatsApp. I registered on Twitter. I don't remember my password. People are on Instagram. You check on all manner of news websites in a day, plus your own organization's website, and so on and so forth. It gets to a point where you yourself, you tell you, no, I cannot cope. Occasionally, I go on WhatsApp. I go off WhatsApp. I go off Facebook, and I say, no, this is becoming too much. I believe that at some point, we would get to that point where people would now make choices. Just like we used to have GBC as our only source of information, whether radio or television. And now we have hundreds of them. Now, you cannot tune into all of them at the same time. You have to make a choice. And your choice would depend on who is giving you what you want. And I believe that at some point, we're going to get to that point where people would begin to make choices. But at the same time, it's important that those of us in mainstream media will look at how we can still make ourselves relevant. And that is why people are now looking at the options of fact-checking. Could we be the source of verified information for people? Because people are being bombarded with all manner of information, gossips, and so on through various sorts of social media. On a daily basis, we know that these are the pieces of information going around. Can we be the source of verified information for these people. And I think that is where mainstream media would get its value.
Let me go on the phone and speak to Dr. Echi Kanku, who is a media and political analyst. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Nana.
Well, I announced that you were going to be here. You're going to run late, but since you're running so late, through the same media, we'll still talk to you somehow.
Sure.
Doc, we're just looking at this new phenomenon, well, it's not new, but just probably the realization of social media and the new politician. Gone are the days when, a politician could, hire 2-3 media men and, drive off somewhere, do a project and, control how the news will be, dismissed. But by now, by the time you get there, everybody in the village is a media man with their phone and they'll record it. And before you even get to the editing desk, the news is out there. How mindful should the modern politician be with all these potential media men about?
Well, extremely mindful. At the end of the day, Marshall McLuhan said that the medium is the message. And every age, every generation has a medium that defines that particular generation. And previously it used to be radio, then it became television. And the politicians who were able to master the force of this medium were the politicians who control the order of the day. Now we've come through a long way from radio, from television, from print newspapers, and now we are in the age of social media. And so it's important for the politicians to understand the way social media works, to understand the dynamics of social media, and to be able to get a grasp of it if they want to succeed both in the political world and also in governance. We do have to understand that at the other end of the continuum definitely are the citizens or the individuals. Let's not forget that in political communication, at the end of the day, it's a two-way street between the politician and the citizens, and from the citizens to the individual. And previously we had the mainstream media, we had the traditional media, which performed a mediated role in this particular part. Now that kind of mediation has been broken down in a way through a new form of media, digital space, where citizens have a certain amount of agency. And by agency, they have a certain amount of control, a certain amount of access, a certain amount of control over the consumption of political information or the spread of that political information. So we moved from the traditional public sphere into the digital public sphere, where there's a less formalized form of deliberation, there's a less formalized form of engagement, and this has been very crucial, not only to the spread of information, but to the shaping of opinion and to the altering of ideas and behaviors as well. And so the politician has to be mindful of the power of this particular medium in terms of spreading information, in terms of shaping opinions, and also in terms of fostering behaviors or altering political behavior.
Doc, I was just going to come there, and the politicians should be mindful. But is social media, credible enough for, if I was a minister of health, social media credible enough for me to bother if they start spreading some news about me? Who knows whether it's true or if it's just, being doctored and broadcasted?
Well, the fact of the matter is that in politics, politics is as they say, the marketplace of ideas. It's a very open space. It's the idea of deliberative politics. The idea of dialogue lies at the center and at the heart of politics. The idea of deliberation lies at the very core and the very foundation of of democracy. When you go to the Athenian form of democracy, people used to meet in the market square. People used to meet in the public square. People used to meet at the city center, the city square, and they were able to engage in public discourse and public deliberation in a physical mode. Of course, that is impossible under the present circumstances. And so the notion of that kind of discourse, the notion of that kind of deliberation, the notion of that kind of engagement or citizenship has moved from those physical spaces into other spaces. Now we have the digital space, and so we have a digital sphere, a digital deliberative sphere where that kind of exchange takes place. So the notions of credibility, the notions of whether something is true or not, as it might apply in the traditional form, definitely applies in this digital form as well. Because at the core of democracy, you see, the thing is, and I was listening to Sulen, is very right, that the fundamentals of democracy do not go away irrespective of the medium. And those fundamentals include political participation, the issue of persuasion, the issue of trying to shape political opinion. All of that still happens in the digital sphere. And let's also not forget that this kind of deliberation, this kind of engagement fosters citizenship. It fosters identity. Remember, we have a president who said that do not be spectators, be citizens. And one of the greatest ways in which you can become a citizen or you can express that citizenship is through, the dialogue, through the notion of expression. So internet or social media memes or social media messages have, or the idea of trolling, or the idea of something going viral, has put that power, that power of citizenship in the hands of the people. And so the trolls and the memes have become sort of weapons or digital bombs that citizens can throw at politicians. It has empowered the citizen in a very, very deconstructed and deinstitutionalized form. So that the power has moved from the traditional media to the hands of the citizen in a world or in a political space which is being shrunk by the use of social media and technology. So whether the politicians like it or not, they've got to live with it. They've got to understand it, and they've got to engage with it in a meaningful way. Otherwise, they will find themselves wanting or laughing at the wrong side of their mouth, as they say.
Doc, hold on. Let me put this question to Sule, and then I'll come back to put the same question to you. So is it going to get to a point where the political parties will have digital campaigns instead of running up and down the country? They say, look, at 2 o'clock, log on to Facebook Live. The candidate will speak to you. They will have probably a billboard or big speakers booming, and then he sits in Accra, and he doesn't have to, cut all people up and down the villages. I don't know. Do you think we'll get there, or that's too far-fetched?
Well, I think it will become an increasing phenomenon in terms of people using digital platforms to campaign, and already we are seeing that. But the physical presence in political campaigning would still be a very, very important thing, because face-to-face communication has its own ramifications, has its own influences, has its own importance. So it is definitely going to be, it is going to grow in terms of digital communications processes, and we are already seeing that. I believe that in the last elections, almost every political party worth their sort had, a website. I know the candidates had, all manner of promotions on social media. There was a race to, get into the first 1 million. And I believe when President Mahama then got it, and then candidate Akufo-Addo also hit the 1 million, it became news, who was the first to hit it. And then, of course, there were analysis being done as regards which of the candidates was more social media savvy than the other. But of course, in our context, it's also important to look at, yes, social media is growing, but are we there yet in terms of the numbers? Because there are still so many people living in several communities where internet access is not something that you can talk about. Not too long ago, we heard and read about a teacher who was doing the right thing, trying to use stones, to teach the kids how to use a mouse, or the essence of a computer mouse, and then it became a topic.
Via social media.
Exactly, via social media. And through the power of social media, resources were mobilized, and after a week or so I heard, computers had been donated to that same school. So you were earlier talking about the importance of it and whether or not it is the positives outweigh the negatives, or it's vice versa. And as I said, I think that is still a very, very positive tool. But in our context, the reality is that so many people are still not connected. Because of the high levels of our illiteracy rates, so many people cannot still really absorb the very, very complex political communication and messages that go with campaigning. And therefore, we're still going to have, maybe for a long time to come, or at least for some years to come, the physical presence and physical platform campaigning would continue to be a phenomenon in our politics.
Dr. Skanko, let me put the same to you. I mean, you think digital campaigning is a bit far off, or you think it's closer? Have I got Doc on the phone still?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you repeat that?
Well, I was asking, do you think that, social media form of campaigning where politicians won't have to be driving, 20, 40 four-wheel drives across the country, but will set up a platform in various villages and various party headquarters, and then the leader will sort of communicate to them to save cost? Is it far, or that it's a bit closer?
Well, it's still developing. You see, even in the United States, where they are far advanced and they mobilize the power of technology in a very in a very powerful way. We had a YouTube election, we had a Facebook election, and all of that. Bernie Sanders had a large army online. He was able to mobilize financial watchers through his online drive, through his internet, through his email, and all of that. Mm-hmm. Even then, mobilization or grassroots mobilization has been very, very important. And if you think that you're going to sit online and do your campaign, you'll be out organized, and so I think it's going to go hand in hand. It's going to go hand in hand. The thing, though, is that the successful politicians have been able to master the tools of the internet to feed into the traditional forms of campaigning, to feed into the traditional forms of policy. One feeds into each other. And so they follow up by stories that are shared online. They follow these stories, and whether in governance or whether in politics, they follow up on these stories and they go and then they do the real job. So I think it's going to go hand in hand for now. We shouldn't overestimate its force as well, because we should also remember the demographic differences between ages, between income levels, between education, between literacy and illiteracy, between the urban and the rural. All these variables will interfere. All these variables will seek to determine the power of social media, especially within our context here in Ghana, in terms of internet access, in terms of internet penetration, and the digital divide. So all these variables are very important. But then the politicians that ignore, that ignores its force, its potency, to determine the fortune of any of that politician, I think would be doing themselves a great disservice, because we know examples of policy or initiatives that have been changed, or politicians that have come under undue pressure because of massive form of pressure. Massive form of mobilization that has been done online. Something is trending, someone is being trolled, and there's a lot of pressure, and so the minister has to respond. The political official has to respond. You see, that is the kind of force, that is the kind of power that I believe they should not ignore. Because these are a group of citizens who have a lot of energy. Social media trolling, social media engagement is seen as a form of civic energy, which has now been channeled in a massive way as never seen before. The power is now in the hands of citizens. And so, politicians can have their way, but citizens have their throat. And so, because they see it as a way to make their voices heard and to repudiate political authority when they get the chance. And so they take full advantage of this and use social media as a weapon, you see, as a bomb, as I said, to provoke and to engage or to express. It's a form of expression. And people who share similar opinions tend to bring out those opinions when something happens. So it's a form of expression and the shaping of thought and identity. So I think it's come to stay with us. It's come to stay with us. Definitely won't replace, but it's come to stay with us. And we've got to understand and live with it and see how we can engage it in a more meaningful way to realize the very fundamentals of a working democracy, which is to listen to the people, to engage the people. It's got to be a two-way street, not a one-way street, in order that we can together help to build the kind of country that we hope for. And that is not from top down or vertical, but a horizontal relationship, in order to engage the broad swath of people. Democracy is about the masses, to engage them, to move the country where we got to go.
Doc, I'm going to take a break, and you mentioned something, and when I come back from the break, I will go to both of you with a meaningful way. I'm just trying to find out, should there now be a campaign for us to now pause when the news come, and how is it that you find out, look, is this going to be right or wrong? When I get a news like that, I have contacts. I can call Sule, I can call Aegis, look, I have this news, is it correct? But there's the average Joe who's probably selling his, earphones somewhere. He's gotten the news to say, oh, the chief of staff has, resigned. How does such a person check to make sure that this news is right or wrong? I'm going to take a break, and we'll come back. We'll find out. Well, the principles are the same, but the times have indeed definitely changed. On the phone is Dr. Echisi Kanko, who's a media and political analyst. In studio is Suleiman Abraima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Let me start with Doc on the phone, and then I'll come to studio to Sule. Doc, I'm just trying to find out, is it time to start the education so that people, pause before they act on whatever appears on their phone in form of a WhatsApp message, or if they see it on Facebook?
Hello.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah. I'm sorry, please say that again.
I'm just trying to say that, should we start some sort of education in letting people, to be able to determine what's factual and what's not? And I say this because I'm on quite a lot of media platforms, and so these are all media people. And I just showed it to Sule, where somebody puts a picture of a lady there, and the caption says, they say she's got HIV and intends to give every man in Ghana HIV, and puts, somebody's sister, daughter, on there. Obviously some people get angry and say, look, get real. Have you even seen her health records? But I mean, even if media people are acting this way, what then happens to the average Joe? How do we determine what's news and what should be disregarded?
Right. Well, definitely, I think that it's very important to engage, in some form of education. People need to understand that although there is, a lot of this thing is going on social media, I think it's also a function of human behavior. And so people will use people are likely to use offensive language in trying to make humor out of things. People are likely to also, distort information. So, for me, I do think that the human behavior or human attitudes are not going to change necessarily because things are happening on social media. So, definitely, people, we need to understand that this is here with us to stay with us. And so we just need to, people need to be educated or sensitized, to understand that even though this is happening on the internet, this is happening in the digital sphere, the notion of decency, you see, we talk about decency in politics. Decency is the best form of politics. That notion of decency, that notion of civility, that notion of civility, that notion of politeness, which we desire, which enhances and which facilitates the deliberation, within the public sphere, is still important, when it comes to social media. And so it doesn't mean that you go and then you distort facts. It doesn't mean you should be unduly offensive. It doesn't mean you should use abusive language. And so that education that we've been having, by our good friends, Sule, MFW, and other agencies, it's still got to go on. We need to step it up, because the power of social media is even greater. Things can go viral just by the spread of a button. And before you correct it, the harm might be done. In other places, people have announced things on social media. They say they are rigging this election here. And by the time people gather there with class, machetes, and all that, they cause havoc. Meanwhile, it's not true. So that education, still has to go on so that we all become civic citizens, and in order to build a very decent and a very workable, democratic environment of sphere. Otherwise, it's going to even be worse. Now that things are spreading, in real time, it could be worse. So the education, the National Commission for Civic Education, all the civic agencies, we have to step up that education. We need to improve our notion of civility. The civic culture in Ghana has to be built to form a political culture which is worth the democratic status that we have attained. The political culture and the political socialization has to be stepped up, within the public sphere. In order to build, as we grow our democracy, we need to grow our political culture as well. We need to grow the socialization agency have to also take up their role so that the political quota matches up, with whatever we do every 4 years. Then and only then we can be building a country that we all can be proud of. We can be building a very substantial, a very knowledgeable, intelligible, and workable democracy, which is worth the status as a star of Africa. So yes, definitely the education, the sensitization, the conscientization, has to take place. What is this beast called social media? How does it work? And we've got to be careful. Even the media houses, all that has to be stepped up. We have to have a social media policy, even for the media houses. Okay, and definitely it has to happen also for the citizens as well, and so on and so forth. And then the politicians to parliament. Then we can master that beast and use it for our good, rather than for it can be constructive rather than destructive in our democracy.
Doc, thank you very much for that contribution. Thank you so much. That's Dr. H.C. Kanku. Let me come to studio. So like the same question. And you've raised this so many times that it will get to probably a time where we now pick and choose, where we listen to. Somebody will get up in the morning and say, look, yeah, I want to listen to Joy because I know that whatever comes up from there, it's near enough factual. I'm not going to go tune to here because they can say anything. So should we now probably, how will these colleges be formed, and how do we tell people that, listen, if something comes and hasn't got this tag or hasn't got a red mark, disregard it?
Well, Nana, I think that fundamentally we have to accept that we are in an information society world, or we are in society that is now in a society that is run by information. People are yearning for information at all times. Information is, being churned out, and now people say, well, there is so much information to the extent that people say we are in an era of information overload. But Nana, what is also significant to point out that even as we complain about the information overload and how much we are getting and what is true, what is not true, we are in a situation where, for example, if you take my organization, the Media Foundation for West Africa, part of the substantial projects that we are implementing now is about access to information, because citizens are not getting the kind of information that they must have about their own governance, about issues affecting their lives, about how their resources are being used, and so on and so forth. For example, that we are in a country where for nearly 20 years, citizens have been pushing their government, various governments, to say, grant us that legal basis or legal access to information. And I think that what is happening today should, get our governments to sit up and say, well, if you don't give it to them, they will bypass you, and then that is where the false news, the false claims, the false allegations, and so on and so forth would continue to happen. Because if there is rumor happening, oh, this has happened at this ministry, and I know that if I write to the ministry, or if I just type a WhatsApp message or a Facebook message to the ministry's Facebook page, I'll get instant response. Why would we be afraid of these rumors and so on and so forth? But it is because it will happen. You write and they will say, no, I don't have the authority to respond. We are writing to the AG for advice, and so on and so forth. So even as we complain about information overload, it's about interrogating what kinds of information are we getting. Is it the right kinds of information? Is it that people, out of not getting the information that is relevant to them, have now resorted to rumor mongering, allegations, just making themselves happy about, like you said, somebody sharing a photo of a lady saying, they say this lady has this or has that. So I think it is also time for us to say, look, we need to push for the kind of content that is relevant to our lives. We need to know how our monies are being spent. We need to know how much is being spent by the presidency, how much is being spent by this. And then we will begin to see that people are sharing information that is about our lives, rather than this rumor mongering, this girl is that guy is that, and so on and so forth. So we are in an information society. Information overload will continue to happen. What is critical is media literacy. People should know what I should trust and what I shouldn't trust. And beyond that, I think it is also crucial that governments appreciate that whether or not you give people the information, people would continue to have, source of information playing around. And therefore, this whole thing about right to information should be something that is granted without a push.
Thank you so much. And I always give you this number before I go. It's 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. That's Tanti's Fashion. They make my shirts for the show, so give them a call. Male or female, they make you nice shirts. They have a nice shop near Nyao Clinic. You can visit them as well. But the times have changed, the principles are the same. So if you are a new politician or modern politician, be very wary of social media. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. And Sulu, thank you so much for coming.